I've always had a crazy imagination. And I think that's been a driving motivation for me throughout my life. As my dad and my mom tell me stories of me having tea parties in my room when I was 5 years old and doing the voices of everybody else who was attending the tea party. So I think that is what's naturally drawn me to film is, the idea that I love telling stories, and I love working with other people too, and being very social is, I think, part of being a good filmmaker, because it's really as a team effort. You can't do it by yourself. You can try, but it's not going to go very well. And I think the other skills that I mentioned is that maybe I've always been a little bossy, so I like telling people what to do, which I think part of what makes me a good producer. When I graduated from USC, I knew that I wanted to do film, but I had no idea what that meant. And I had a lot of friends that were going down a variety of paths, and none of it sounded that interesting to me. So I was really scared that I was going to have to give up my dream of becoming a filmmaker. And when I moved to New York, I did it without a job. And I just knew that that was an interesting city that I didn't know much about, that had a lot going on culturally, and I was just going to give it a shot and see what I could find. And so I moved there without a job. I shared a bedroom with my best friend for 4 months. I slept on a blow-up bed for 4 months. And while I looked for a job and tried to find something that spoke to me creatively, but also could pay the bills. And I think, the film world is an uncertain place, and just being willing to give it a shot and see what happens and do whatever it takes is scary, but it worked out for me. So I highly recommend just taking a risk and doing something outside your comfort zone. Barack Obama is definitely one of my personal heroes. I just think that his ability to follow through with what he said he was going to do as a president, and also to work with people from tons of different backgrounds and ideas and agendas, and handle it with a grace and a respectfulness of others that I think is pretty rare in politics. So I'm a big fan of his, and I'm sad that his presidency is almost over. Another one of my personal heroes professionally is the director Laura Poitras. She just won an Academy Award for the work she did on Edward Snowden, and is now leading a whole call to action around secrecy and the way the government handles it. And so I think she's a very interesting and brave woman. My personal goal is to ultimately direct my own films. But on the other side, I really like the idea of creating a community around film. So I want to continue to build grant programs that serve underserved populations. So women or minorities that may not be able to get their films made without financing. So that's one of my big initiatives, is making sure that there's a community of supporters that are really helping a diverse group of storytellers get their films made. So when I was in college, I spent a semester living in South Africa, living in Cape Town, which to me is probably one of the most interesting places on the earth. There's just so much happening there politically, socially. You're watching history unfold. And so there were so many stories that inspired me while I was living there. And I kept telling myself, okay, I'm going to go back someday and I'm going to make a film while I'm here. And I'm not totally sure what it's going to be yet. Probably has something to do with maybe Nelson Mandela's experience on Robben Island. There's a number of really interesting stories that came out of that. But I know I want to go back. And so that's on my to-do list someday. A certain amount of personal ambition, that I want to be able to look back on my life and say that I've achieved X, Y, and Z. Winning an Oscar by 27, check that one off the bucket list. But there's so much more I want to do with my career, and I want to feel like my life had meaning outside of myself, and that it was impactful, and that it made a difference in other people's lives. And I think the legacy that you create with film is really important, and is one of the things that motivates me. And also, I really want, I have an 8-month-old daughter, and I want her to be proud of me, and I want her to see me as a role model, just not only as a mother. I want to be a very good mother, but I also want her to see me professionally as a role model. When I was 7 years old, the American Film Institute came out with their original list of the 100 best films of the century. And my dad, viewing film literacy as important as any other form of literacy, decided that we needed to watch every single one of those films. So as a family, we started every Sunday night. We would pick one of the films ranging from The Wizard of Oz to Citizen Kane to Gone with the Wind, and would watch that entire canon of 100 films. And then from there, once we completed that, and I think we completed that by the time I was in 8th grade, we started reaching out to more foreign films and avant-garde films. So by the time I went to college and was studying film in college, I had a whole historical understanding of film, which really gave me a leg up in film analysis and film production, because I had a background and it's something I could draw from to inspire my work. So I really credit my dad with that. And it's something I'm going to do with my kids as well. It's so hard when anyone asks me the questions, what my favorite films and what were on that list. I love Audrey Hepburn. So I would say Roman Holiday or Breakfast at Tiffany's. Those films still had an impact on me. I also really, really loved like The Great Escape and a lot of the Steve McQueen films and Humphrey Bogart.